Professor Jacobson. How you doing, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
I should say it's Cornell Law School professor as well. As if you need any more bona fides, sir, but we'll throw that out there. Tell us you're suing. Who are you suing, sir?
Well, a lot of people, but the latest is that we have filed a civil rights complaint with the U.S. Department of Education regarding a George Floyd scholarship at North Central University in Minneapolis. Nothing illegal about a George Floyd scholarship, except that one is racially exclusionary. You have to have African ancestry, you have to be black or African ancestry in order to even be eligible to apply for it. And it's quite a plum if you do get it, because it's a 4-year full tuition ride.
Wow. So what's illegal about that, or how are you suing?
Well, it's, again, we filed with the Civil Rights Office of the Department of Education because North Central, while it is a private university and says it's a private Christian university, they receive federal funding. So they are subject to federal civil rights laws, and they have to obey that. And you cannot discriminate on the basis of race, which is exactly what they're doing.
Okay. So I remember in high school there being scholarships aren't based on. I remember that being a thing, and I'm sure this isn't the first scholarship that's based on race. So isn't that relatively prevalent already?
Well, it's becoming less prevalent. I think that we filed over 20 challenges to similar programs elsewhere at other schools, and about half the schools give up once we file the claim because it's indefensible. And yes, there's a lot of stuff that has been going on for a long time that people are now paying attention to, particularly after the Supreme Court's ruling in the affirmative action case. Now, this would have been...
Professor, you say
this would have been unlawful without that, but it helps.
Yeah. You say it's indefensible. Let me defend it, sir.
Okay.
Devil's advocate here. How dare you take away this opportunity to right the wrongs of past injustice and help us give opportunities to marginalized peoples so that they can go to school and afford a better education? What's wrong with you, sir? How dare you?
Well, and you either believe in equality, you either believe that people are entitled to be treated as individuals, not proxies for a racial or ethnic group. You either believe in equal protection of the laws and the civil rights laws, or you don't. And if you do believe in them, which I do, then you can't discriminate on the basis of race, and you can't discriminate against people now because of things that happened in the past. That's never really been the law, and it's certainly not the law now that you can do that. So discriminating in order to cure past historical wrongs that generally took place in society is a dead end for society. It's just embedding racism deeper into our society. So I don't think morally it's right, and certainly legally it's not right.
First of all, anytime someone comes at you with a hard rebuttal like that, the best response is the first word. It's like, well, but you're like you weren't distracted at all by the character assassination and aspersions and the insinuations of my devil's advocate.
Well, I've heard it before. I've heard it before. Yeah.
Did you see Coleman Hughes on The View the other day? I know you're a big fan of The View.
I did. Yes, I'm a big fan. I saw it on whatever it's called now, X. I saw the 8-minute clip, and it was excellent. I mean, he didn't take the bait. They tried to goad him. They tried to character assassinate him, tried to claim he's a conservative, tried to claim he's being used, and he did not get distracted by all that. He kept bringing it back to the point of treating people equally and moving society forward. A lot of times they like to say, well, you're trying to bring society backwards. And actually, no, that if you're having racially exclusionary scholarships, you're the one who's bringing us back to a bad time. You're the one who's bringing us back to Jim Crow. That's the exact opposite of what the civil rights movement was about. So he handled it very, very well.
I want to play it on Monday's show in full, and we're going to break down how he did that as a good advice for all of us, not only in the topic, but posture as well. It's similar to the posture you're having right now, too. So one of the hosts said, you mentioned his I Have a Dream speech judge someone by the content of the character, not the color of their skin. But his daughter said that 4 years after that speech, Dr. King said a society that has done something special against the Negro for hundreds of years now must do something special for the Negroes. Well, what do you say to that, Professor Jacobson, and founder of criticalrace.org and the Equal Protection Project?
Well, we have had a great society program. We have, as a country, pumped trillions of dollars, I believe, into anti-poverty programs, things like that. So I think that what Coleman Hughes also pointed out is that what Dr. King was talking about was not racism. He was talking about helping the poor. And we've done that as a society. Whether it's been a good investment or not, whether it's paid off is a different question. But to pretend that we are in 1954 instead of 2024, I think is just historically inaccurate. And you can't ignore what's taken place over the last 50, 60 years.
Okay. So what's going to be the latest with this lawsuit? How's this move forward?
Well, it's at the Department of Education, their Office for Civil Rights. We would be hoping they would open a formal investigation. That would be the next step. It's hard to predict how many weeks or months that will take. Sometimes they move very quickly. Sometimes they move slowly. It's really hard to predict. But that would be the next step, would be an opening of an official investigation.
There's no way the fine people at the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Education are happy with with your challenge. And I bet they won't just be like, oh, he's right on principle. I guess we'll just get rid of it now.
Well, it depends. Sometimes they are that way. I mean, it's really hard to predict. It's such a sprawling office, and there are many different office locations for the Office for Civil Rights. So it's really hard to predict. They have been good in some cases. They recently opened an official investigation against University of Wisconsin at Madison after we filed a complaint about a scholarship they had that was open only to BIPOC, that's the acronym, BIPOC students. And they pretty quickly, within a couple of months, opened a formal investigation. I'm hoping that's what will happen here.
Nice. I can't let you go but without asking you about the latest with Fani Willis. And I forget where we last left off in this drama, other than our conclusion was the whole thing is crumbling before our very eyes, which is pretty wild. We were talking to Josh Hammer, and he said of all the cases, this was the one that was maybe the most concerning for Trump because it was a state and he couldn't pardon himself from it, and it's RICO, and there's different levels of whatever. So it's like the most troubling, and now it just seems to be the silliest of it all. So what's the latest with what the judges did against Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA? Yeah,
well, there was Fani Willis and her lover. I forget his name, actually. Wade something or other. I don't know if that's his first last name. When she hired him, funneled money to him through the state coffers as payroll. They shared expenses. Very bizarre relationship.
Can you not do that? Is that not allowed?
You can't use public money to pay off your lover. So I think there's a real question there. That wasn't before the judge, whether she committed some offense. It was whether there was a conflict of interest. And the judge found that there was the appearance of a conflict of interest between these two prosecutors. But then he did something that was very bizarre, which is he said, okay, well, you two decide which of you leads the case. I mean, where does that happen? If you catch two people robbing a bank together, you don't say, okay, you decide which one of you we will prosecute. They should have both been on the case. Once he found an appearance of impropriety on those two prosecutors, they should have both been off the case. They shouldn't have gotten to choose which one of them leaves.
Interesting. So is this going to move forward at all anymore, or what's?
Well, there's arguments. I think it was yesterday about whether the charges were improper violation of First Amendment rights. That this is all political speech that went on, and I think that's a good motion. Whether the judge will grant it's a different story. My position has been on Georgia from day one that this is an improper RICO claim because you have to conspire to do something illegal. Or overturning an election, despite what you hear on the news, is not in and of itself illegal. It happens all the time. You do court challenges, you can do congressional challenges. None of that is illegal. So the fact that people conspired to overturn an election is not actually a crime. If they did it in an unlawful way, if they committed crimes in the in the course of doing it. Like there was some claim that somebody hacked into a server or something like that. That's then charged them with hacking into a server. But I think the fundamental claim against Trump and the others that there was a RICO conspiracy here, and also in D.C., a criminal conspiracy, is fundamentally flawed because the end result of overturning an election is not in and of itself illegal.